Okay, so start a teardown day number 2. We'll start up here. We're going to get this steering drag link off. We're going to get the selecto speed shifter off and the dash cowling. We're going to get all the injection off. Get the hydraulic pump off and the hydraulic manifold off. And that's going to be basically it up here until we get to the heavy lifting parts. So then we'll come back here, take this, sorry excuse for a seat off. We might take the fenders off today, we might wait until we get the wheels off. We'll come back here and we'll work on getting some of this 3-point off. Once we get all this done, it'll be time to start working on jacking the tractor up. Then I'll probably start taking the front axles apart. That way I can kind of support the tractor with the rear tires. And then something underneath the transmission. And then we'll probably pull the engine off of it. I'm not sure if I'm ready to put it on the stand just yet and disassemble it or just set it to the side. Once we get that much done, we'll worry with taking the rear tires, wheel assemblies off, and then we'll start disassembling the rear end. Like I said, transmission is just going to be swapped out for a 5-speed. So whenever it comes off, it's just going to get set off to the side. So that's kind of the game plan right now. Not sure what all will get accomplished today, but we'll just get to it and see where we get. Okay, now as I have mentioned, this tractor is supposed to have a power steering cylinder that runs basically from here to here and then back to a bracket back here. But since this cylinder apparently grenaded on this guy, instead of repairing it or replacing it, they came up with this monstrosity, which is extremely loose and it makes this tractor very hard to drive. Right here is supposed to be a tapered ball joint socket. They put a bolt in it. I do have a reamer and I'm going to ream this out to get the ball joint to go back in it, since I have the correct cylinder to go back. So all of this is just going to be taken off and just set aside. So let's start working on that, and then this drag link here will fall down. And that's good enough to get it clear of this drag link. There's your drag link loose. Okay, so now we'll move up here. We'll get our toe adjusting sleeve, or drag link adjusting sleeve, I suppose, because there looks like a toe adjustment down on the wheels. This will be our drag link adjustment. But we'll go ahead and get this guy break free. We'll get our drag link pulled out, and then we'll take the sleeve off of the ball joint here. And then we'll knock the joint out, and then we'll remove this pitman arm. And the reason I'm going to go ahead and remove this pitman arm, these things are on here very good. And I'm probably going to have to go get a puller and pull it off. And since I'm going to have to do that, with it still bolted to the tractor will help hold it. But for starters, let's get this bolt out right here. And let's see how this thing wants to cooperate. Okay, good. It spins pretty easily so far. So that makes life easy. Usually these drag links on these old tractors are locked up. You have to put pipe wrenches on them to get them off. One thing I always do when I'm working on cars or even my old tractors, all those threads right there, Not so much on tractors, but cars, you know, your toe adjustments will get out of alignment. If you put a little bit of grease on them, it'll make the alignment go a whole lot easier. Okay, let's get this other one out of here. But what it is you have one side that's left-hand thread and one that's right. So that whenever you're spinning this, they either both go in or both go out. Because if they're both right hand or both left hand and you spin the sleeve, one will go in, one will go out, you won't get any kind of adjustments. And there's our adjusting sleeve. Now to get these ball joints off, I'm going to use just a pickle fork. Okay, now what I'm going to do, since I only have the ball joint here, I'm going to thread this nut off, and I'm going to back it up just a couple threads, because when this thing pops off, it's going to come flying. And since I don't have any other weight or anything, it's going to go very far, and I don't want it to hit me and or the camera, and possibly hurt me or the camera, either one. Okay, when it comes to your pickle forks, as you can see, there's two sizes. One's considered a ball joint and one's considered a tie rod. Now, as far as our tractor is concerned, we're probably going to have to use the ball joint one, even though this is technically a tie rod. Now, the tie rod fork does go over the threads. So let's see. We'll try this one first. If it don't work, then we'll go to the tie rod. There's our ball joint. So the first thing I want to do is take off this big nut right here in the lock washer. And this is an 1.5 inch nut. Let's get this off, and it's when you go to turn it, well, this one's loose as crap, but it may spin the pitman arm. Lock washer's still nice and good, so we'll use it. Of course, we'll reuse the nut. And when it comes to the puller that you want for this, you can either use a dedicated pitman arm puller or a puller like this. And I like this style puller because it has this cross beam right here. And I can tighten that cross beam up to where these jaws will not move. And you put a lot of pressure on something with this guy. Spray a little bit of liquid wrench on there. It might help me a little bit, might not. But can't hurt it. And that one actually came off extremely easy. So that's good. Usually you gotta fight them. Okay, I finally got this dang shifter off of here. I didn't do it exactly the way the manual said because I had already screwed mine up. But the easiest thing on your PTO, just the PTO, it looks like it's threaded kind of like your shift one. To get this guy out, you loosen the nut. Loosen the nut that's right here. And then you basically thread this, put your handle back on, and you thread it out like a giant screw. And it's kind of left-hand thread, so you have to turn it to the right to get it out. Now, for the shifter itself, which is here, you're going to take these 4 mounting screws out and then pull this out of the dash. And then you're going to undo the screw here, just like the PTO cable, and then you're going to shift it all the way to 10th gear. And then right here is a little disconnect that just comes apart, and then this assembly comes out of the tractor. Now, like I say, I screwed mine up. As you see, my shifter is actually in park, which is probably why this cable's all the way out. I would like to get it pushed back in so it doesn't break off, but apparently you can get it out in park. It's just a pain in the hind end. And I can safely say I'm glad this is not going back on this tractor. Okay, so now I can finally take the cowl panel off the tractor. Okay, so let's go ahead and get this injection or hydraulic pump off, and then I want to drain the last little bit of diesel fuel out of my filter, and then we'll take this assembly here off, then we'll pull the injection pump, and then I'll go ahead and get my new leak off line off. And I've got a drain pan down there. I could go ahead and drain the hydraulics back here at the rear diff. What I'm going to do is just unbolt it here and then just unbolt the manifold and let it fall out down here, just because it's a little bit easier to get to. To get this pump off, you got the 2 bolts here, and there's 3 bolts down here. These bolts should actually be studs with nuts on them. Somebody put bolts on mine. There's 2 different bolt sizes. And as far as the head is concerned, I will probably put studs back on it just to be correct. So I'll have to either manufacture those, either on the lathe or using a bolt, or just purchase them. But I will definitely put them back to the correct specs. Okay, so there's my hydraulic pump off. And I have rebuilt this pump already, but I did video it. I'm just waiting to get it edited, and then I will post that up. The hydraulic pumps are pretty simple to rebuild. And as I said, you know, in the walk around video, what gives these tractors life hydraulics is they're ran off of a gear right here, which is connected to your camshaft. So anytime the motor is running, your hydraulic pump is spinning. So therefore you have live hydraulics. So now let me take loose the bottom parts down here on the manifold, which run back to the rear of the tractor to our hydraulic reservoir, which is underneath the seat. And this is going to make a pretty good mess. Hopefully not too bad. But like I said, I could drain it back there out of the drain plug, but this way will work too. And here again I got mismatched bolts. This might be why I have mismatched bolts up on the pump. Whoever just put this stuff back together just threw bolts willy-nilly places. Now on this manifold, as you can see, there's an in and an out. There are two tubes that run along your transmission back to your hydraulics reservoir. On these tractors, they're internal. On the later model 1000 series, they're external. You can actually see the big pipes running over the top of the transmission and running down the tractor. These pipes can fail. So far I have been lucky not to have that issue, but knock on wood, this tractor might have that issue since the hydraulics do not work. With me replacing the transmission, I will be getting new tubes, and I'm going to have to inspect them to make sure they're in good condition. And there's fluid coming out down there. But yes, I do have a drain bucket down here. And even though I got a dirt floor, I still don't want to dump oil on it. I don't need the EPA coming after me. Let's go ahead and work on the diesel. There's a little thumb screw right here under your inlet on your filter. And you crack it open, you can drain the diesel fuel out of the filter. Which on here, just like I did up at the gas tank, I converted this to a compression fitting instead of the flare fitting, just for ease of using this line and for finding parts. We'll go ahead and take our feed line off of our injection pump. At the current time, pretty much the only hose for this injection that you can get new is this hose here from the New Holland dealer. I have seen these being reproduced now. You can get them on some tractor parts web pages. Hose that runs here is no longer available. I ended up making mine, and then all their other hard lines, I made those from scratch as well. Which they're all 1/4 inch steel tubing. And just to point it out, these have been repainted the correct new color. So you can kind of see how dingy this tractor is and what it'll look like when it's repainted. Go ahead and get our throttle link off. This I'm going to also zinc plate, just like the one that goes up the steering column. There's my oil feed line. I'm pretty sure this is non-original. Should just be a copper tube out of the block all the way back. That's how I'm going to put it back. Now on your injection pumps, so I'm going to have a video of me rebuilding it. Although it was done with my cell phone instead of my new camera, so it's not the best of quality. But it does get the point across. Now I've already taken it out, obviously, because I've rebuilt it. But I've marked it, lined up timing and all that. But what I do is, there's two different style pumps. Yes, they're both Rosa-Master Standardine pumps, but depending on the internals of the pump, you're either going to set your timing at 18 degrees or 24 degrees for the 172 diesel. So what I did was I first set mine at 24. Well, that didn't line up, so then I set it to 18, and my little timing marks in this window lined up. Now since I'm reusing this pump, and hopefully I'll be reusing this block because I really don't want to replace it, it should be good, I just took a chisel and made a little index mark right here. So that way it helps me to line it back up. So I have a mark right here on my block And we know the pump is rebuilt correctly because after I rebuilt it, the tractor did run. And that was one thing I was wanting to do. That's why it's all new, because this pump was not built properly when I had it. The actual governor cage was missing a part, so the governor was all screwed up. But I got it rebuilt. It does run, so now once I redo the tractor and go to put it back, if I have any problems with it wanting to start or anything, I know it's not my injection pump. I mean, I could be out of time or something, but there's ways to line that back up. But the pump itself is not messed up. Now the washers that are on your injection pump, they have been cut and angled. I'm pretty sure my camera's not going to focus on that, but this is actually angled off and cut off. Those are actually designed to set on the pump that way, so don't lose these. Which, I mean, yeah, you can remake them or use regular washers, but there again, if you got them, use them. Okay, now that I got all that loose, just grab your pump and lift it straight up. So I now have this motor as naked as I can get it to be ready to pull it out. It does have oil in it, and I'll probably drain that before I pull the motor off. But everything else is off of this engine that I'm ready, or that I want to take off at this moment. So, with that being said, and we have everything back to our steering box, I'm now ready to go towards the rear of this tractor and start disassembling the rear of it. Now, there's not as much stuff in the rear, so it's going to go pretty quick. I went ahead and unbolted the fender and got it out of the way. This was on the bottom of it. This is the stabilizer bracket, complete with a dirt dauber nest. What I'm going to work on back here until it's time to take the tires off, I want to go ahead and get all the upper links off, including the level box. Take off this joke of a top link, and I call it a joke because we have a Cat 1 here and a bent Cat 2 back here. At least I believe this is a Cat 2. It's bigger than anything I've ever used. So this is complete junk to me. We'll go ahead and take this drawbar bracket off, and it is broken. And for some surprising reason, I don't know how I ended up with it, but somehow I ended up with one of these for a row crop tractor. We'll go ahead and get the lower lift arms off and get this other fender off. I may go ahead and work on getting these drop mounts out, and that's going to be about it. And then we'll get the seat out of here. And like I say, a lot of it back here is the same as a regular tractor, regular being non-row crop. Kind of the only really difference is where your top link picks up and your lower links. On a regular tractor, your top link is going to pick up here. Your lower link is going to pick up right under the axle. And these guys here are going to be shorter to compensate for that. But this, like I say, is no good. And unlike everything I've done thus far, most of this stuff just has pins and cotter pins in it. So it's going to be a lot of beating and banging, knocking these pins in and out. This one right here actually doesn't even have a cotter pin in it, so this one's probably rusted. This guy should be fairly easy because it spins. These guys down here do not want to move. So this pin here is probably going to be fun. But for starters, I want to go ahead and undo my safety check chains and get these lower arms out. Well, that's going to make that fun. The bolt is actually spinning. So let's get this one off. So that way you can at least see how they come off. I'm going to start by taking out the cotter pin. Remove the cotter pin. The clevis pin. And be careful you don't lose your D or your U clip. We'll go ahead and get this chain out, which is works the same way up here as it was down on the arm. It's a cotter pin, a clevis pin, and a U-link. Like I said, we got our chain and our little U-link and our clevis pin. Alright, so now this arm is free to move whichever way it wants, with no limit. So what we're going to do first is go ahead and unbolt the upright, and hopefully this one will unbolt. And surprise, it's not even tight. This bolt here is the same as what's on that side. It's actually got a knurl right here that should grab a hold of that chain link and hold it. However, it's wore out, so it just spins. And these bolts are wore pretty good. I will probably replace these. I won't bother trying to fix them, I'll just replace them. So now our lift arm is free to come out. We just have one more pin up here. Just take out our cotter pin, which is not even installed properly. Pin slides out. It looks pretty good. Should be able to reuse this. And here's our lift arm. Okay, so now this level box comes out. Now, like I say, this is a aftermarket unit. I just now realized they had this installed with the grease fitting down. Great job there, guys. Little grease fitting, it was actually pointing down. It's like, how you gonna get to it? But this, I will not be reusing. I actually have an original style one that'll be rebuilt and put on here. Okay, tried that with another pair of vice grips. It just slips. So, since I'm going to be replacing this bolt due to wear and everything, all I want is this arm pretty much and the chain. I'm going to just disconnect the chain from it, and up here remove this link, and this link is an assembly. And then I'll take this home and I'll weld this solid right here, so that way it's got something to grab a hold of, and then maybe I can get that thing to cooperate and come on out. This lower one's not have a cotter pin in it, so I don't know if somebody's already tried taking it loose before or not. Well, thankfully that came out nice and easily, so that's good. Use our handy dandy Phillips headed punch here. Okay. Like I said, that's pretty wore. So probably end up replacing these guys. To get this seat off, there's two nuts holding it on. This one here, obvious. There's another one back here. And when these seats are in good working condition, you can slide it back and get it through this hole. However, this seat does not want to slide, so I'm going to have to try to reach in here with a wrench and get it. This thing didn't have a good SMV sign on the back. I'd pick it up and just throw it down the road. I'll probably take the SMV sign off before I do that. And I just realized why this is so loose. The draft spring is actually broken. So, and the seat's messed up. So I might have to see if I can locate a new spring and a seat. Shouldn't be too difficult, I wouldn't think. Although this does look a little different size-wise compared to the 861. It might be similar to a 600 or a NAA Jubilee style tractor. But I have to get the parts manual out and look at that. There's a good chance that this right here is the whole reason that the hydraulics don't even work on this tractor. There's our other stabilizer link. Does not appear that there's a left and a right. Nuts loose. Lock washers broke. Plus they're wore out, but I'll put new ones on it anyway. Hopefully I can get these bolts out because I really don't want to replace them. I know from the tractor parts stores these bolts are like $40, which is ridiculous. They are supposed to be zinc plated, because there again, say, white or gray part bolted to a blue part, or a red part if you got the older ones. So they should be zinc plated. So even with all that wear right in there, that shouldn't affect it, because that's where our sway bar or stabilizer bar bracket goes. And then we just lift the fender up and off. And those fenders, those are for row crop models and the LCG model. Okay. Now, in the walk around I talk about these ears. Those are row crop specific. And like I say, the one that I have has these. I have no idea why I have it, but I have it. Now the other drawbar bracket is under here. These are also different between the row crops and the regular tractor. The row crop had a short stabilizer, and I guess that's to kind of keep them out of the way of your plants if they're over here towards your tires. but they came off this center lower drawbar over to your arm where your check chain would go. I don't have them. I've looked at them, but with the with the lift arms that I have, the check chain bracket that is riveted on, that's where those arms go. And unless I want to cut that off and put the correct style sway chain eyelet on it, then there's kind of no need for me to even have those. So what I did was I just bought the regular style stabilizer bar that comes from here back to my arm. So there's those little ears where the little short stabilizer would hook up. They're welded to the standard drawbar bracket. Okay, here's day 2's teardown. I know it don't look much different, but there's actually quite a bit done to it. As you can see, I got the front wheels off today. Start working on getting the steering off of it. I got all the injection system off of it. I'll spit it out here eventually. I'm a little tired. Got last bit of sheet metal off. Got the shifter off. Hydraulics partially off. Fenders are all off. That annoying piece of shit seat is off. And I got probably about 90% of the lift off of it. So basically tomorrow I'm gonna be either hooking up the boom pole to the tractor or reinforcing it, one or the other. And now I get to start tearing into the heavy stuff, because I pretty much have all of the easy to get off stuff off of this thing. So now comes the fun part. But anyway, that's it for today.